Good evening, Trump family. Welcome to Open Source News. Have a good night, everyone, and God bless you. Alright, the following is a collection of news from Patriots. Let's get into the news. And it looks like Katie Hobbs is getting her 30-minute interview with PBS after all, after chickening out on a debate that PBS was supposed to be hosting for the Clean Election Commission there in Arizona. Katie Hobbs dodged that, and now, of course, PBS will bow down to the Democrat because that's who they are. They're Democrats in disguise. They don't even hide it most of the time, and they will not hold her accountable. I'm sure they're not going to ask her any tough questions. And Katie isn't going to face some type of criticism that she wouldn't be facing on a debate stage if she were to be on the same stage as Kari Lake. So once again, it Democrat getting away with being able to dodge a debate because they are too scared. So as we know, Katie Hobbs is a coward. She is, I believe, has been promised that she would win Arizona by the DNC if she would just go along with the 2020 wink-nod what took place there back into that election. And so she's employing the Joe Biden strategy of hiding in her basement, and not coming out to do any type of debate, any type of questions, or anything. She is hiding and allowing the media to run her campaign for her. So Kari Lake once again had called her out. The Election Commission has called her out, the Debate Commission, has called her out and saying that this is what Arizona deserves is for you to be on the same stage as Kari Lake, to separate yourself or to stand by your ideas. However, of course, she's not going to do that. She's a coward. She's a racist and a coward. That is how these people operate, and she doesn't want to be held accountable. So let's go ahead and take a look at this article coming to us from the Gateway Pundit. And of course, it highlights this. It says the leftist University of Arizona State University goes on lockdown for Katie Hobbs' interview with PBS while Kari Lake holds a chicken dinner in honor of Katie with supporters. And Tulsi Gabbard. That's right. Yes. What a flattering picture. Their Democrat Katie Hobbs is set to be interviewed by the Arizona PBS in place of a debate with Kari Lake. After the Arizona Clean Electric Commission cut ties with PBS and chose a new debate moderator. The Gateway Pundit previously reported that Arizona PBS had decided to go against the Arizona Clean Election Commission by offering Katie Hobbs a 30-minute interview in place of a debate, despite the commission's rejection of this proposal for Hobbs to campaign, and the Will Ryan Reiner from the Republican Governors Association called Katie Hobbs out, saying she has 5 days left or prepared and come up with answer to defend Slave Day auction you organize, why you were a 2-time convicted racist. And explain why you think of one you can't think of one good quality about Latinos. Prove that you're not a coward. Yes, Arizona Clean Elections has partnered with KAST to broadcast our gubernatorial event on Sunday, October 23 at 5 p.m. Both campaigns have been informed, and additional details for the media and voters on how to watch our forthcoming. Katie Hobbs will still do an interview with PBS tonight. ASU is putting on the Cronkite of School of Journalism on lockdown until tomorrow, claiming we do not know what on-site circumstances may be around the Cronkite building after 3 p.m. This appears to be an attempt by the ASU liberal ASU to cause panic and fault Kari Lake, of course, right? But Kari Lake says Kari Lake supporters are not planning to waste their time today and protest at ASU. We are planning a lovely chicken dinner and candidate forum and Chandler tonight to talk about the actual issues facing Arizonans. That's right. She's having a chicken dinner in honor of Katie Hobbs because she is indeed a chicken somebody. Most Democrats actually are when they have to defend their ideas. They don't like to have to defend them, and Kari Lake is doing an amazing job over at Arizona illustrating that every single day. These left droids are coping beyond beliefs. Like I always say with these lefties, they'd rather live in their own little alternate reality, their own little safe space, than ever have to confront reality. And somebody who's really struggling to confront the current reality is current Speaker of the House, Nancy Pelosi. I think she's really struggling to come to terms with the fact that probably in a couple of weeks here, no longer is she going to hold on to that title, Speaker of the House, and boy is she coping as all of this new data starts to hit. This new New York Times poll has Democrats absolutely panicking. And well, you won't believe what Nancy Pelosi had to say here in an MSNBC interview. I mean, the coping is reaching extreme levels of absurdity as the Democrat establishment continues to crumble. Alright, folks, so take a look at this. The New York Times poll is an outlier poll. Nancy Pelosi dismisses poll showing GOP gains. Let's take a listen. So let's talk about rising inflation concerns along with crime, giving new momentum to Republicans after the Democrats were closing the gap, the historic gap. Yes. So after the Supreme Court ruling, there was huge outrage that has seemed to subside, at least among overriding concerns, despite all the legislative accomplishments, and I want to say it's been an extraordinary session. You and the president have done so much in terms of domestic concerns, the economy. So why is this message? Why do you think the president has gotten this message through in the voters? And Nancy Pelosi said, well, first of all, let me say that I think that much of what you've said I don't agree with. That is to say, the New York Times poll, I think, is an outlier poll. You'd say one poll, but all the others. It's also the Real Clear Politics. No, but that was one that brought down the average and it was an outlier. It wasn't even that big a sample. So I dismiss that. I have been since Congress adjourned. I've been in an average of 5 states a week. And I can tell you that women's concerns about their freedom are very much still very significant in terms of how they will vote. In fact, 80% of people who care about a woman's right to choose say they will determine who they vote for. Okay, there is so much to unpack here. Let's start off with what Nancy Pelosi said. And then we could tackle what Andrea Mitchell said. I believe that's her name. First off, Nancy Pelosi says the New York Times last year in a poll is a quote outlier. Well, really quickly, let's take a look at the RCP average with all of the most recent polls. When you quickly glance at this, does the New York Times polls seem like an outlier? Or does it seem like it's right within the trend? I mean, this level of coping is just absolutely unbelievable. The clear outliers are the same polls that are always outliers, Politico/Morning Consult and YouGov/economists and even Fox News, until of course, they recently revised it from registered voters to likely voters. They finally screen for likely voters. And would you look at that, all of a sudden Republicans take the lead, even in their poll. I mean, this level of coping is just completely absurd. Democrats are refusing to accept the fact that their strategy has failed. Frankly, it's completely imploded. And Nancy goes on to claim that, well, it's a small sample size. I mean, there's various different sample sizes. As you guys can see down the list, they're all showing the same damn thing. A massive show lacking for Nancy Pelosi as House Democrats. She's just refusing to accept reality, she claims. Well, I dismissed that. Well, good for you. Unfortunately, you can't just dismiss reality. The segment between Nancy Pelosi and Andrea Mitchell has been losing IQ points. And of course, it's not just Nancy Pelosi, it's also Andrea Mitchell trying to craft this narrative as if the polls don't make any sense. Because Joe Biden and Nancy Pelosi, his legislative record has just been so strong, she claims, yeah, real strong, like spending trillions of dollars passing all of these irresponsible pork-filled packages during an inflation crisis. I mean, for Pete's sakes, Nancy Pelosi and Joe Biden have been working in contradiction with the Fed. As the Fed is making moves to try to tackle inflation, these clowns continue to stimulate inflation with their ridiculous spending packages. Andrea Mitchell even said that Joe Biden and the Democrats have done such a good job tackling the issue of the economy. Dummy, I don't think you're paying attention. The reason Democrats are crumbling in the polling data is because of their spending packages and their irresponsible policies in the midst of an inflation and economic crisis. These people are just unbelievable, and it's a perfect example of what you get in the world of Democrats and of course the Democratic media. It's alternate reality, living in a fantasy when you turn on MSNBC. It's nothing but phony garbage propaganda, crafting narratives, avoiding basic truths and basic facts, pushing Democrat messaging and narratives above all else. And look, it might be frustrating to be watching this stuff. I mean, it legitimately hurts your brain. But at the end of the day, to a certain extent, it's a good thing because it gives us a glimpse into what's really going on here. What you are witnessing is absolute sheer Democrat panic. The Democrats are realizing that their narratives are falling short. Actually, here's the perfect example from Jen Psaki's Twitter feed. Jen Psaki writes, "Holy moly, CNN/New York Times poll. More than a third of independent voters and a smaller but noteworthy contingent of Democrats said that they were open to supporting candidates who reject the legitimacy of the 2020 election as they focus on economic issues. Democrats are panicking that their big lie narrative, their January 6th narrative, and the abortion issue isn't paying political dividends like they were hoping. This is what I mean by panic. Nancy Pelosi claims that she's been all over the country and she's heard women. Alright, well, that's fine. That might be your little anecdotal reality within your realm, within your world. I mean, people who are showing up to Nancy Pelosi events are, of course, going to tell you that, but when it comes to the majority of people moving forward, it's just not the top issue. Neither is looking back at the previous election. And of course, my January 6th doesn't even come close to a top issue for Americans. The top issue is the economy. And folks, we are seeing a Republican surge. I mean, just take a look at the list. It's mirroring the high from February to June, where we saw Republicans maintaining this massive lead over Democrats. As the political discussion comes back to reality a little bit, the little blip on the radar, the little Democrat gains that we saw there for a couple of months seems to be evaporating. And we're also seeing it in Senate races. Democrats hit pretty hard against Herschel Walker with that little October surprise of theirs. But after the debate, the latest poll released shows a statistical tie between Herschel Walker and Raphael Warnock, both at 46%. Democrats are not making the gains that they need to, especially considering all of the nuance and all of the factors surrounding polling inaccuracies. Let's go to Pennsylvania. We're seeing the same thing. The last two polls between John Fetterman and Dr. Oz sees Dr. Oz closing in within the margin of error. John Fetterman's ceiling at 48% remains, showing anywhere from 45 to 48%. Support, the aggregate hasn't met 46.5. Most likely the Democrats going to underperform, and most likely the Republicans is going to overperform. And so whether Nancy Pelosi and these coping Democrats want to admit it, of course, they want to dismiss anything that doesn't fit their worldview as an outlier poll. The reality is Republicans are extending their lead. And even in places where Democrats are maintaining a lead, it's continuing to shrink and shrink and shrink. And that's going to happen all the way to Election Day with the polls that I'm seeing right now. I'm pretty comfortable to predict that I think Dr. Oz is going to take it. I think Herschel Walker is going to take it as well. I think even Blake Masters stands a pretty good chance of taking that race against Mark Kelly. And I think the House is going to swing in a lot more aggressive fashion than you might expect. I mean, even in 2020, it swung towards Republicans. The idea that Republicans are going to win a small majority just doesn't seem feasible, doesn't seem logical to me. I am preparing for a red tsunami. The Democrat panic that we're seeing here in the ninth inning is reinforcing that belief. And really the only thing that's standing in front of it is, well, possible funny business. But as it stands so far, I know two things to always be true. If Democrats are outraged, if Democrats are losing their minds over something, then most likely whatever they're losing their minds over, well, it's probably a good thing. And if Democrats are coping and if Democrats are panicking, it means they're probably losing, and losing big. They're losing control of the narrative. They're losing control of messaging, and they're losing control of this election. Whereas Fox News as Geraldo Rivera at I thought the Dobbs decision was going to seal the deal for the Democrats, fake news journalists and biggest clown on Fox News Geraldo Rivera seems to be wrong yet again. All these doom and gloom predictions from these supposedly Republicans probably aren't going to age well. Thank you so much for listening. God bless. I'll be back soon with another report. God speak to each and every one of you. Thank you for all of your support. Thank you for all of your kind words.